Our story begins with Kaede, our protagonist, who is talking to her friend Riza. The girl can't play with her due to her studies, but still recommends her the NewWorld Online game and leaves her to create her character while she studies. Kaede can't refuse her friend's request, so she prepares her VR equipment and enters the game. Immediately, she names her character Maple, and since she dislikes pain, she chooses to shield as her main weapon. She also allocates all of her points to defense. This causes her character to walk very slowly when she enters the game. After asking for directions from a girl named Frederica, Maple goes to the forest to level up, where she encounters a bunny that can't do anything due to its high vitality. In the end, she kills it with her shield, gaining experience points and leveling up. Although she didn't want to kill it, the bunny provided her with experience points to improve her skills, and as it's too late to change her choice, she once again invests all her points in defense to avoid getting hurt. Suddenly, a wild bee appears and attacks her, but it only tickles her until it eventually poisons her. She attempts a strategic retreat, but she is too slow. However, she realizes that she can become resistant to the poison if she lets herself be attacked. In this way, she tricks the bee who approach her, eventually killing it. This earns her more points, which once again go into defense, and she obtains a ring that restores her health. Due to her prolonged battles, she ends up falling asleep, unaware that a bunch of bugs have started to attack her. She wakes up after a while, realizing that this has allowed her to acquire the meditation skill, a healing ability that activates when she's under attack. After defeating the bugs, she considers her day finished and logs out. While she attends to her real-life tasks, she inadvertently becomes famous because she fell asleep in the middle of a monster attack. When she logs back in the next day, she notices that everyone is dressed much better than her. She seeks guidance from a squire named Kuromu, who explains that to get a shield like hers, she needs an artisan. He takes her to Eyes, a friend who crafted his shield, but Maple's dismayed to find that these shields are very expensive. Nevertheless, her new friends tell her that if she goes to the Poison Dragon's labyrinth, she may find good rewards, and to assist her, they give her some items and consumables. With her one functional brain cell, she ventures into the dungeon alone, encountering some slime she can't defeat until she uses her shield and acquires a new skill called Shield Attack. The girl continues her journey through the dungeon, defeating every enemy in her path, ultimately reaching the lair of the Poison Dragon. However, the dragon uses its venom to dissolve the girl's equipment. Despite her resistance, she can't endure the poison, so the only thing she can think of is to use the recovery potions. She has to increase her resistance gradually. Although she comes close to death, she eventually achieves complete immunity to the poison, leaving both her and the dragon at a stalemate. She then begins to bite the dragon, eating it little by little until she finally defeats it. Thanks to a new skill, she also gains the dragon's powers. In the end, when she checks her rewards, she discovers a really cool set of equipment, and she proceeds to level up all her points into defense. Sometime later, as she discusses the events with her friend without either of them noticing, the protagonist becomes increasingly popular. Sometime later, the protagonist continues playing with her new equipment, devouring all the creatures that attack her and gaining the Devourer ability. While she plays, she can only hope that Riza will log in soon. The next day, they are on their way to school, discussing that the first NewWorld Online event will be held soon, something Riza knows is her friend's weakness. This only motivates her even more to finish her exams quickly. The event hour arrives, and the game's mascot, Dorazu, presents the new scenario for the players where they will have a free-for-all battle. Since the protagonist isn't very good at attacking, she decides to wait for her first victim, a guy named Christmas Rose who tries to attack her, but is absorbed by her shield, just like everyone else who tries to attack her. Even those who don't touch the shield can't harm her because of her high defense. The protagonist, feeling surrounded, uses the dragon's poison she obtained earlier, managing to kill a large number of players. The downside is that she is ranked 3rd in the event, and as you can get some points from the players you kill, many are hunting her, trying to defeat her. However, her defense and abilities make it very difficult for them to damage her. In the end, she finishes in 3rd place. When she tells Riza about it, her friend is surprised that her absent-minded friend has come so far just by increasing her defense. Since she no longer has exams, she can play, but she doesn't want to choose something like a mage to avoid making her group generic. That's why she decides to be a swashbuckler, a player who evades enemy attacks to better fit the concept of being untouchable. That's how both friends log into the game shortly after, with Riza registering as Sally. Since she's going to be a swashbuckler, she distributes her points, prioritizing agility. However, what's important now is the protagonist's shield. While she can defeat enemies, she can't acquire skills that require taking a hit. That's why she plans to ask Eyes for a white shield, but for that, she needs white fish scales from an underground lake. In this way, the girls set their first goal, but since the protagonist is very slow, the other girl carries her and runs, quickly reaching the location. Here, they start fishing, with Sally taking the lead, allowing her to collect several scales in a short time. Nevertheless, she also takes the opportunity to dive, finding an underground door. Upon returning to Maple, she gives her a bunch of white scales in exchange for her help someday. That's why she asks her to come back to the lake every day so that her diving skill improves and she can explore the dungeon underwater. Maple agrees, and in the following days, both friends return to the lake over and over, allowing the swashbuckler to explore and map the area until her skills finally reach the maximum and she has no choice but to take the risk and go after the boss. Sally descends into the dungeon, reaching the boss area where she gets a short breather. However, the monster quickly attacks her and the battle begins. Although she manages to evade its attacks, the monster gradually depletes the dungeon's air, forcing her to play with increasing seriousness. At the last moment, she succeeds in beheading the monster. Due to playing seriously, she's exhausted, but in return, she obtains a very good set of equipment that will assist the protagonist in the upcoming event. Then it's announced that the next level will be added soon, a world as vast as the one they have now, which will also bring new monsters and adventures for them. Sometime after this, the girls are discussing outside the game because the administrators have been releasing updates to prevent Maple from becoming too overpowered and to discourage everyone from abusing the tank role. They're adding weapons that penetrate defense and other things to nerf her. However, Maple gets excited when Sally mentions that with all these changes, she might feel more invincible when fighting. After reconnecting to the game, they decide to explore the areas they haven't visited yet. But first, they go to the skill shop, where Maple acquires Cover Move, which will allow her to protect her friend if she encounters any problems. Then they go to a restaurant where they meet Dread, the second-place winner in the previous event, and Drag, Frederica's friend who is ranked 5th. They tell them that another event is coming up soon, but even if they join forces, they can't compare to Pain, who is the first-place winner in the event and the fastest to reach level 2 in the game. The girls, as they plan to explore other areas, ask for the boys' help, who send them to the Northern Forest. They mention that there's a mission at night to obtain the super speed ability, but they don't think girls like them can do it. At first, the girls don't understand why they're being discouraged, but that only gets them more excited. However, when they arrive at the forest, Sally becomes terrified as it's filled with ghosts and terrifying monsters. They seek refuge in an old house, which has a hidden basement where they find a man in distress. After healing the man several times, he finally rests in peace and grants them the ability they were seeking. With what they need in hand, Sally takes Maple to an old tree trunk that leads to a beautiful landscape with a brilliant sunset, where they find Red Mother of Pearls. They start playing around and Sally hides from the girl where she wants to take her, saying that they need to wait until they reach level 2. Sometime after their little adventure, they travel to the entrance of level 2, where they encounter several wild boars. Sally begins using her new skill with a protagonist called Mirage, which makes Maple's shield invisible. Once they reach the boss room, the battle begins immediately. However, the boss defends against their attacks with a magical circle activated by apples around the room. Although they manage to break through its defenses, Maple is stunned by an attack, leaving the rest of the work to her friend. With all of her powers and attacks, she defeats the boss, allowing them to advance to the next level. Upon arriving, they meet Eyes, who has prepared Maple's shield, naming it Shirayuki, which is designed to increase her defense and vitality to better suit her playing style. Shortly after, Sally takes her friend to a different location, which appears to be a romantic spot. They are served a star-shaped drink and pieces of the sky. As they consume them, their hair and eyes sparkle like stars, and while they eat, they are delighted to have come so far together. Later, the time for the event arrives, and there they meet Kuromu, who introduces them to the Flame Emperors and their leader, Mi, who finished 4th in the last event. Dorizu appears, explaining that this time the event is to collect 300 silver medals, of which 10 are equivalent to 1 gold medal. Upon receiving one of these, they can exchange it for equipment or abilities. The event then begins, and meanwhile, the internet continues to follow the two players. The two friends, upon reaching the game area, find themselves in an extensive field, feeling excited about their first event as a team. They start exploring, but Maple quickly gets lost as she falls into a trap leading to an underground area. This area has a nearby boss door, so with that in mind, the two friends enter to try and defeat it. The boss appears out of nowhere and goes after Sally. It's at this moment that the protagonist uses her new ability, Cover Move, to swap places with the girl and avoid the attack. She also uses it to keep up with the boss and assist in defense. This is exploited by the other girl, who ultimately defeats the boss. After the battle, they claim 2 silver medals as rewards and head to their next destination, a snowy mountain, where they find Kuromu with his group, who were about to enter another zone but seem to be unable to go with more than one team. Since the protagonist still owes Kuromu for helping her when she started, she decides to leave the dungeon to him and his team as a token of gratitude. Of course, she won't complain if they end up winning. Sally doesn't mind either, and as they are about to decide where to go, they see the portal opening again, which means 2 things. Either the reward is right at the entrance, or an incredibly powerful monster wiped them out. This doesn't intimidate them, and they enter the dungeon immediately. Once inside, they encounter an ice bird, the boss of the area, which the protagonist defends with her body since she can't use Devour with ice attacks. Sally also tries to attack while the protagonist covers her and uses her meditation to recover a bit, indicating that this boss is not like the ones they faced before, so they need to be serious about it. That's why every time the bird attacks, the protagonist stops it, but eventually her Devour skill runs out, and just when she's about to use the last one, the boss adopts a darker form, increasing its attack power to the point where it breaks her shield. Nevertheless, that doesn't stop her from continuing to cover Sally, giving her a chance to attack. They use the Mirage skill to confuse the monster, and at the last moment, they manage to use Maple's poison to finally defeat it, leaving them exhausted. Afterward, we learn that she survived due to gaining a new ability that allows her to survive an attack and be left with only 1 HP. Once they are healed, they collect the medals and some monster eggs that they can hatch into pets. In the end, they see they have several places to go after the battle, but meanwhile, some administrators are surprised to see that they defeated the boss of the zone. Although this took them by surprise, they are glad that the reward is nothing more than pets. However, it means more work for them as they need to find a way to nerf her. The girls, on the other hand, continue advancing through the game map, finding medals and hatching the eggs for their pets. In the end, Maple gets a turtle named Syrup, and Sally gets a dog named Oboro, both of which they can always carry with them and have them fight alongside. As they help their pets level up, they reach a desert and find some ruins where they are awaited by the 6th place player in the rankings, who wants to take the protagonist's gold medal from her. In this way, while Maple is still trying to understand the situation, the 5th ranked player and her friend begin to fight using super speed, reaching the desert again and leaving the protagonist behind. She tries to use her powers to catch up to Sally, but Sally's Mirage skill saves her and turns the tide in her favor. Later, the protagonist arrives running, falling to the ground in front of them, but that causes the stand to start swallowing them until they are taken to a dungeon where they are bound with binding chains, and if one of them dies, it will kill the others. Because of this, they propose a truce, and the 5th ranked player introduces herself as Kasumi, exploring the dungeon with them and realizing that they are very nice people. When they reach a certain point, they encounter a giant snail, which is part of the dungeon's mechanics. They try to bypass it using super speed, but they end up at an impasse, where the only way out is a hole in the wall that is too high to reach. Nevertheless, Sally manages to jump, and with Kasumi's help, they escape the deadly trap. After thanking each other, they reach the end of the dungeon, where a treasure awaits them with a shield for Maple, weapons for Kasumi, skills, and medals for Sally and Kasumi. In the end, the group exits the dungeon, and since they got along so well, they postpone the PvP for another time. They become friends in the game and bid farewell. Despite this, Sally is worried because they haven't been able to collect as many medals as they would like. Still, it doesn't deter them from continuing their search, exploring every corner of the map to find everything they can. Days later, Maple is playing with a boy named Kaede who has no interest in the event as long as he has his cue, which is actually a staff. However, he doesn't tell them what it's for. Despite this, he becomes their friend, and as a thank you for their friendship, he gives them a small riddle to advance in the event. But he doesn't provide the answer since the fun is in discovering it on their own. In this way, they arrive at some ruins where, by filling some pools with liquid, they are transported to a marine area, encountering a giant squid as a boss. Initially, the boss takes no damage, but the protagonist poisons the water around it, easily defeating it and obtaining the medals. As both of them are transported to a beautiful marine landscape, the administrators continue to worry about their rapid growth and how Maple is becoming uncontrollable. Back with Maple, she and the other girl are aware that they will need to defeat other players to get medals. Sally knows she is better at PvP, so she leaves her friend in charge of guarding the medals while she goes to get more. She realizes that she's really good at fighting, easily defeating many players. However, she only manages to get 2 medals after all that slaughter. Because of this, and with little time left in the event, she was back to Maple, and they hide in a cave. Kasumi arrives, sharing their hideout, and they stay hidden for the rest of the event. The protagonist, while being together, recognizes that she had a lot of fun exploring different places and meeting new people. Once the event ends, we see that Syrup has gained the Metamorphosis ability, which allows her to become gigantic. At the same time, Maple has acquired Psychokinesis, allowing her to fly on Syrup and generate poisonous rain. We then see our protagonist returning to the real world after being connected for a whole week. Her friend warns her to be careful as her in-game habits might surface. Although it seems like an exaggeration, she ends up acting just like she would in NewWorld Online. So she takes 3 days off from the game to rest. When she returns, Sally tells her that during her absence, they added shining creatures to the game. Catching them allows you to use a building in the game as your home or base of operations. Since both of them want to get a house, they start searching, but all the good ones are either taken or expensive. They come across a very nice tree, which they end up claiming for themselves. Since it can accommodate 50 people, they decide to invite Kasumi and Kanade. They accept without hesitation, and while they talk, Aiz and Kuromu, who were gathering materials, also join without any problems. The group goes to the treehouse, which they love, and since Maple is the guild leader, they decide that she should be the one to welcome everyone and give it a name. That's how they christen it as the Maple Tree. Later, Aiz and Kanade go to a mine to collect materials, where she learns that Kanade's Q gives him a random ability each day and then initiates a fight with monsters. On the other hand, Kuromu, Kasumi, and Sally are battling monsters in the forest, with Sally taking the lead, although she still can't harm Maple. This motivates their friends to join the battle because they don't want to disappoint their leader. After finishing their missions, the guild gathers again at Maple's tree. where they start planning their strategy. Kuromu updates them on the game's news. Apparently, the next 2 events are already in development with only a week left for the third one. The third level of the game is also close to opening. Since the difficulty increases with each event, they need to start recruiting due to their small number of members. Nobody opposes the idea, so Maple and Sally go in search of new recruits. They check the bulletin board, but no one convinces them, so they go to level 1 to find someone. Maple isn't concerned if they're weak, she just wants to have fun. They come across some girls who are discussing what to do in the game. Maple invites them to join her guild, even though they're beginners. The 2 friends take them to a cafe to chat, and here they introduce themselves as Yu and Mei, 2 girls who specialize in attack, just like the protagonist, although Sally advises them not to take her as an example. After both sisters agree, they end up joining the guild. Since they can't enter level 2 yet, Sally and Maple accompany them to defeat their first boss. Here, Sally has already faced it. She uses Oboro to create shadow clones and gain an advantage in their attacks, while Maple protects the girls from the boss's attacks. After the battle, they take the girls to Maple's tree, introducing them to the rest of the guild members who welcome them warmly. Even though the new recruits don't believe they are strong enough to be of help, a simple headbutt shows just how dangerous they can be. This makes Sally think that the girls are somewhat similar to Maple, which means that things will only get more fun from now on. Sometime after the girls join the guild, we see Maple taking them to the Poison Dragon's dungeon. She helps them move faster through a time trial challenge in which they use one of Maple's skills, using a poison capsule for transportation to complete it as quickly as possible. Despite their efforts, they can't finish the challenge in under 3 minutes, so they keep trying again and again until they succeed. With this method, the girls finally reach level 20, and they also obtain skills that allow them to use 2-handed weapons with one hand and another that doubles their attack power. Since they have such great skills, they receive crystal hammers to maximize their attack even further, and the whole guild is surprised at how quickly they've grown with Maple's help. Later on, everyone except Aiz and Kuromu is off on their own missions. To keep Kuromu involved, Maple assigns him a task, leaving Syrup in his care. While Kuromu is happy about it, he can't help but feel that the girl trusts the others too much, as he could easily steal Syrup and leave the guild if he wanted to. On the other hand, the sisters are practicing with Sally on how to fight effectively despite their low agility. Since she is such a skilled gamer, she plans to teach them highly effective gaming tactics for when she can assist them. On her side, Kasumi is obtaining wool from sheep using her shearing skill. However, she learns that Maple can now produce such wool and make it poisonous, creating a kind of harmful defense against enemies. Back with Kuromu, he and Syrup easily clear the dungeon, obtaining new equipment for him which allows him to go a little wild. Since everyone is leveling up, Maple is unsure of what to do. While she's out for a walk, she comes across an NPC who offers her a mission. In this mission, she must obtain a special item to save the NPC's sick daughter. Since Maple gets deeply involved in the story, she decides to accept the mission, taking the mother over a forest with Syrup to get the needed spring water. However, she quickly realizes that this mission shouldn't be this easy, as the mother's dialogue hints that crossing the forest should be challenging. But it's no issue for her since they are flying. After giving the cure to the daughter, she remains sick, so they need a ring that Maple obtained in a previous mission. However, instead of healing her, the ring makes her go mad and flee the house. This is where the third part of the mission begins, and they need to go find the daughter. They find her at an altar, where various spirits start attacking them. While the protagonist can defend herself, protecting the mother is challenging. Fortunately, the daughter stops attacking because the water she consumed helps her control the demon that possessed her. Now the daughter doesn't wake up, but the next clue of the mission tells them they need to get something from a church. At the church, they find a potion that cures the daughter, releasing an archangel that was protecting her. As a reward to Maple, the Archangel grants her the Sacrifice of Love skill. She quickly asks Aiz for a new set of equipment and then shows her friends her new skill. With this skill, as long as she is alive, everyone within her range will have her same defense, making them invincible within her radius. On the other hand, Pain and his guildmates were discussing what to do with Maple. Although she is just a novice, she and her group have shown tremendous growth. Therefore, they decide that they must investigate them first if they want to confront or eliminate them. The day of the third event arrives, which involves searching for cows throughout the map and collecting rewards. Maple finds this challenging because she is very slow. However, the others are more interested in the outfits that Aiz has designed for them, making them all look cute and adorable, though Kasumi isn't very comfortable with that. The event begins and we see how everyone except the protagonist is managing to find and catch cows. They send her advice and encouragement to keep going, and even though she makes slow progress, her clumsiness causes her to fall down a mountain, unintentionally using up all her devour abilities for the day. After her fall, she stumbles upon a strange gear on a tree and decides to follow the forest path. She finds the church from her previous mission, and upon entering, she is greeted by a monster that tries to attack her. Thanks to her ability to create wool and syrup, she easily gains the upper hand. However, the demon manages to recover from the attack and extends multiple arms that take her into its stomach, trapping Maple. Since her friends are unaware of her situation, she has no choice but to resort to her trusted method of eating the demon from the inside out to escape, gaining new abilities in the process. Meanwhile, Mai and her guild are hunting a large number of cows using her power, though she doesn't seem very excited. Additionally, the administrators are aware that they need to keep an eye on Maple, as she continues to go out of control. After the event concludes, everyone gathers to see the guild ranking, with Emperors of Flame and Holy Sword, the last one led by Pain, being the top guilds. Despite this, they don't let it bother them and decide to move on to level 3. Upon reaching the boss, Maple faces it alone using her Predator ability. She then uses Chaos Ren and finally Atrocity, an ability that allows her to transform into a monstrous beast with increased attack and agility, easily defeating the boss. This new ability proves to be very useful as it boosts her attack and agility, and even if she runs out of health, she returns to normal. This confirms to everyone that Maple has finally ceased to be a normal human or at least a regular person. Upon reaching level 3, they quickly discover that it's a world filled with machines, so to get a better understanding of it, each of them takes a different path. In the midst of this, the protagonist encounters an old man who tells her a story. Long ago, the machine god created this city, but people wanted to understand how these machines worked, even though they didn't have screws or mechanisms. Then the second god, who apparently despises the first one, arrived. Now the protagonist's goal is to uncover the rest of the story. After hearing this tale, Maple begins heading towards the city center to investigate, but on the way, she and Syrup get lost and arrive at a place called the Cemetery of Dreams. Here, she encounters the Machine King, who reacts to the gear piece that the protagonist found earlier. The Machine King then mercilessly